Uh, Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. Let me introduce us. He is Georg. He's the Open Source Committee Chairman at Intersect. And I'm Sebastian, and also Open Source Committee member. Our conversation is about what we are doing in the real open source and how we can push forward together the work we are doing. So let's start.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm a bit taller. I want to talk about why open source is important and tie this in with something that we may all be very well aware of right now, the economic situation around ADA. We are now looking at an ADA price that is 1/3 of what it was just 6 months ago. And I am worried about the sustainability of our ecosystem. I'm worried that there will be developers who can, in the future, not be supported of creating the technology that the blockchain runs on, the applications that run on the blockchain, that there is going to be a situation where we are not able to sustain the work that is going on. And this is where open source offers a path forward, a solution where we can, and especially the paid open source model, where open source, I'll just make sure everyone is a little bit familiar with what I'm talking about, just in case there are people in the room who are not as familiar with it. Open source is, on the one hand, a licensing scheme of making sure that the source code is available and can be audited and can be edited, and that there are rights as a user to look at the source code behind our applications. But then open source is more. There is an engagement model, a governance model around creating things together, innovating together, having a way of sharing the development. And so this is where, when we open up the development more broadly, we can be more sustainable. And we'll talk about some of the challenges involved in that. When we look at the Cardano space and how open source has been practiced, at the very beginning it was projects here and there, and the way that there was a license, but there wasn't really an engagement, a governance model, a practice of doing open source, working together. And so with the Voltaire era and Intersect forming, there was a start to create more community-led decision-making, creating a governance around how we make decisions in a more shared way. And open source needed that as well on a very technical level. How do we make decisions for what gets implemented? What standards do we build out? How do we create the technology and stabilize it so that others can build on it? So this is where we are getting into building out these institutions. That is what open source needs to establish, to allow the builders, allow you all to come together and work together across projects, coordinate, have standards that we can all coalesce around, have transparent rules of engagement, have a way that we agree to work together. And I'm going to ask Sebastian to share about his experience with open source, how it has evolved, and especially the challenges that we have seen. We've also done a survey to not just rely on Sebastian's experience.
The Open Source Committee is basing from the beginning it's the general framework that we are working on and trying to push the community based on, we are taking from the real world, the outside world, a few examples. We are mentioning, here we are mentioning, for example, the Germany Sovereign Tech Fund. We are seeing outside what is working in the outside world and trying to apply here in the Cardano ecosystem some of those learnings and ways of doing open source, right? But we have to adapt some systems to our own reality. So one of the pillars of our work is to take the feedback from the community and start to understand better what's happening, because the better way to to know what's happening is asking for the people that it's been directly affected by a specific situation. So we have some general basic knowledge about what is required in the open source side of things. We need licensing based on the general knowledge, but also what the Cardano members, the Cardano builders, are sharing with us via surveys and these working groups and meetings. We have different classifications. We need licensing, governance, documentation, community, and sustainability. And these kind of surveys and conversations with builders have allowed us to identify specific items that we need to manage and drive and direct their not only funding but better good practices and standards. Yeah. So you can see in this graphic, in this picture, in this image, the general aspects that we need to deal with and make it better for the ecosystem, specifically the builders ecosystem. Yeah.
And I want to give a shout out to Adam, who was on the open source committee before I even joined. So the work that we are building on has been in the works for quite some time. So what you've seen just now, what Sebastian was talking about with the challenges, there are solutions. Once we know what the challenges are, we can work on a way to solve them. And there are way more things that we want to do. As you can see here in this chart, we decided on focusing on 3 strategic things first. One, we wanted the technical sustainability. That is the outcome that we need to build applications on the blockchain where the businesses that we are creating don't have to worry about constantly changing the technology, but they can focus on building out their business and serving their customers and creating the use cases and having actual activity on the blockchain, which is great for us. This requires a governance and decision-making scheme that we agree on so that we can shepherd the technology. But we also need the community engagement and collaboration for that sustainability aspect of not just having individuals making decisions, but sharing that decision. So these 3 are key pillars to moving forward into a more and stronger and sustainable future. The other things like technical development, innovation, and strategic alignment with goals, challenges, and opportunities in open source, additional strategic considerations, those we can focus on later. Once we've built out that foundation, and that's where we are right now. We have this long laundry list of ideas of things to do from how we go about doing this. I don't want to spend too much time on this idea because we've actually gone into implementing already. We bundled this into a paid open source model. That's the name we gave it. We've learned, as Sebastian said, from what others have done in open source, where in open source, in Web 2, we've seen a lot of problems, like maintainer burnout. The people who create the technology are not incentivized to stay with the technology and continue to respond to issues as they come in, update it as technology evolves. there's a lot of misaligned incentives in open source, unfortunately. And we know this, but open source as a collaboration model has still proven to be so successful that we run on open source. Every device that we have has an open source component in it. The internet standard, all of that is developed in an open source way. And so I don't think there is a way around embracing the open source collaboration model and governance model, but we want to address the incentive misalignments. And we have a unique situation where we can do that, where we have, as we build out stronger technology and we get more adoption, we get more. Well, what happens when someone adopts the blockchain? We get more transactions. When we have more transactions, a little fee goes into a treasury. And now we have money available that we can reinvest to building out that strong technical foundation where we have money to pay maintainers. We have money to ask for new features. We have money to solve the issues that we had before. That's why we have the paid open source model versus the traditional Web 2 open source. The paid open source model just happens to abbreviate to POSM, which is a really cool mascot because it stands for resilience, adaptability, and also communal strength. All good things that we would like to foster. And this idea has taken off. The DREPs funded this idea with almost 6 million ADA, almost $3 million. And so for almost a year now, we have been implementing our ideas and building the governance, building the policies, funding actual people to work on the open source in the Cardano space. And we've worked with several partners because while the open source committee has the strategy, has the vision, we have the open source office at Intersect that does the day-to-day work, the policy implementation, and know your customer compliance, and who knows what. There are things that it's just good to work with partners. So we have several partners, and we are now in this phase where we are terraforming worlds. Where we are implementing, we are getting the word out, we are bringing people in. And this is where the focus really, and what's interesting is where we are going from here. And we'll talk more about the individual programs because I think they're interesting to you all here in the room because you might want to engage with them. And so as we are moving forward, preparing for the second budget, there are some programs that have worked really well that we are really proud of. Others where we've identified, there are others who can maybe do it better. So there are these 3, Bug Bounty Incident Monitoring Accelerator program that we're giving to Intersect because they have better connections and we can steward these programs better. And then others that we've just kind of decommissioned, like we really want to focus on where our strengths are. And I'm going to pass it back to Sebastian to talk about these programs and how you can get involved.
Situations like this presentation are the opportunity to recognize the valuable work that makes all this started. We are building these things like the open source, the paid open source model, thanks to the pioneer work of people like Aidan, for example, that they and his colleagues were the pioneers of put all the initial pieces together and understand the problem and bring their knowledge to some kind of coherent framework, right? And they try to build some solution to a general concern. So thanks to them. The programs, my call as open source committee member, but as part of the Cardano community member in the developer side of the ecosystem, the builder side, is invite you, builders and entrepreneurs, to visit this link where you can find all the information related to the programs and take seriously the decision to take advantage of these programs, because are available to provide support, financial support, but also technical support, and all kinds of in different kinds of ways these programs can support you and support your work that is vital to the Cardano ecosystem. And as Georg was mentioning, in this moment is pretty difficult to progress with the current conditions. Maybe these programs can help you to continue operations, right? It's pretty important in this moment to take advantage of this big budget from the Cardano treasury. So you should go. Previously, in the previous slide, this is the link to the programs. In general terms, these programs are classified in three categories. One is the next. One is the sustainability, the programs related to sustainability. We have the maintenance retainer and the tooling sustainability program. All these two programs are focused on providing sustain and support to the projects, right? So in terms of maintainers and in terms of certain activities, tasks, or projects internally, things like internal projects that the builders are projects that the builders need help in some way. Yeah, in general terms, sustainability is the key thing. The other category is the next one is the developer growth. We have in this moment we have a really good cohort of developer advocates that are pushing the envelope in different regions of the world. They go, for example, they are going to universities or they are talking to businesses and they are trying to consolidate relationships and links with these external real world players, right? They are working in this work on the field, trying to bring Cardano closer to the people, to the real users. So this program is also, you as Cardano entrepreneur or Cardano builder, you can contact these developer advocates and start some kind of close relationship between them and your project. Yeah, you can start the conversation with them. And finally, the programs related to security and response program. All this is about security. In the bug bounty program, the program is using as tooling support the X5 Big Honey, Git Honey, sorry. With Honey, we are using that to deploying the bug bounty program. So that's a kind of example of how we are eating our own food, dog food, right? We are using our own Cardano tooling to solving our current needs. And the other is the security incident response, and it's about keeping in check our Cardano ecosystem in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of security. Yeah, our invitation is a call to go in and check the programs, right? Are open to the participation of the builders in general. Okay, Georg.
Yes, thank you. We're happy to engage in conversation with you. Feel free to ask questions. We have a microphone there, and while we're waiting for hands to go up, I'll just keep talking. Oh, okay, I don't have to talk very much. Very good.
Thank you for your work, both of you. And I would like to know how is the experience talking with the universities for the developers that are working in this program? And are you guys in touch with like Foundation Academy, or are you taking the work that like the IOG education team did in order to like approach the developers and approach the colleges? How has it been?
So the developer advocates, this is our longest standing program, and every year we have a cohort of 4 or 5. I think in the next budget we want to go up to 6, so we have one for each continent basically. And yeah, we are using the materials and we are improving the materials that are existing. I'm not familiar with what exactly they're
Yeah,
using in each
I know,
engagement.
I know that you are doing some job in
Yeah, I want to
in
support
universities,
the
right?
system or take advantage of the material that you guys are
Okay.
creating.
For example, in this case, you could go and contact to the developer advocate. In general, you could go and contact the open source committee, for example, the open source office, and present your situation, your specific opportunity, right? I have a cohort of 10 or 100 potential developers, right? How could you support us, helping these guys, these students to take the next leap, right? So we can use, in fact, we can use one of these programs to support that project. For example, we can use the developer advocate program they start working directly with the students. For example, we can channel in these potential students, potential Cardano developers to the maintainer retainer program, for example. Some of them could want to contribute directly to core repositories in Cardano. So
There is a way.
these programs are designed to support the work that other people, other Cardano members are doing that for the moment are disconnected in some way. So if you have, I know you work strongly in the part of going out and bringing new members to the Cardano ecosystem. So we have this kind of programs.
Woo! Yay! Thank you. I think there was another question over there.
Thanks for coming here and share this very important stuff for the community, especially on these times. Thank you. So, yeah, and I'm going to try to be brief. I really need to talk to you guys later.
We'll be around today and tomorrow, so
Yeah.
happy to talk with you.
Yeah, it's hard to just be able to talk when we travel, when we can travel, especially for people that cannot travel so much. But I will take all the chances. Great, thank you. So, being very brief. Some people, for example, in my experience, being a bit on the trenches, trying to build. Sometimes, of course, with all the support on Catalyst, thanks for the voters and Catalyst for all what they have done so far with the ecosystem. But sometimes it's not enough, as most of us know. That delays a lot of funding, and you have to keep moving. You have to keep producing. Then sometimes you are kind of trapped into the closed source trap, where maybe that's the only thing that helps you to monetize your previous work. If you just open source, there is no guarantee that you will be able paid for what you have done. There is no guarantee you will be supported and helped back. How can these programs help retroactive funding for people that do not need to prove the delivery because they have already delivered? They have the stuff being done. They keep building all the time without funding, and they are just waiting for just a little help to just go full open source as it should be. That's something super important for us. For example, on my tiny world,
Yeah.
and will be super important. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Excellent. The problem that you're describing, we see this time and time again. And this is not a new problem. And that's why we created something like the maintainer retainer program, which has two target audiences. There are two types of maintainers that we're looking for to fund them. One is the situation where you say, hey, I'm focusing on creating something. Granted, in our case, it needs to be open source so that we want to support it. If it's proprietary, we can have a conversation about what needs to be proprietary because that is intellectual property that people are willing to pay for, and what are like foundation layer services, tools that can be open source. So we can have a conversation about the balance, because not everything needs to be open source or not everything needs to be proprietary. There can be a balance. For the things that are open source, we can give you a community maintainer. You can say, hey, my project would like a community maintainer. And through the open source committee, we provide someone who is maybe familiar already with the project, but hasn't been paid to work on it. And now we can pay them to check the issues, to close them, to look at the bug reports, to engage with other developers, help clean up the documentation, make sure the contributing guide is good, whatever the project needs from a maintenance perspective, that we have someone to look after that from a community perspective. That's one type of person that we can fund. The other one is someone who has built the tool and like right now maybe was laid off from their job. So they have a lot of knowledge. They know how the tool works. They want to continue working in it, but they're no longer with the employer that set them on this path. And now we can say, okay, we want to keep you involved. We have a stipend for you to continue working as a maintainer in this project. That's also the retainer part in this, maintainer retainer. We want to keep that in the ecosystem. So those are the two personas, if you want, for people that we can fund and support in those situations. Do you want to add something, Sebastian?
Yeah, with these programs, we are creating some kind of co-responsibility among the builder that builds, no matter the current financial situation, the general financial situation, but they keep building, and the Cardano ecosystem, right? These programs are designed to listen the builder, not listen by voting or listen by a general consensus, but listen their arguments about I'm building this because this is part of a public infrastructure and is providing a public service, right? But me as builder, I need some form of support and sustainability to keep the lights on, right? So we are creating some kind of, this is not about money, not only about money, it's about creating better conditions to understand and talk with the builders, with the builder ecosystem, and create with that conversation in common a better public infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Also,
Thank you.
the
Thank you.
tooling sustainability program is also where you can say, hey, I have a tool that is being used already in all these different places, but we need additional support to maintain it, keep that tool going.
Hi. At what scale are we talking about here? About someone maintaining tools? One developer, two, three, a company? What?
So this is support. It is not going to be a full-time job. This is a part-time additional incentive to stay engaged. It's not to replace a job. It's not to pay a whole company. So for the maintainer retainer program, we accept applications for projects, and then each project we can give 2 part-time maintainers to support that. For the tooling sustainability program, it's a very similar range where it's just an incentive to stay engaged and focus some of the attention and time on the tool.
Okay, so we've got this kind of programs. So I wonder what is going to be procedure to apply. So you are having already. Okay, but do you have in mind critical parts of the ecosystem that needs to be, there, that are worth being there, or it's just on the other side that people are going to apply and you are going to decide? This is this formula, right?
Right now, that is the modus operandi where we put up a web form. You can say,
Yeah,
hey,
that's
I
why
want to apply.
I'm asking, because for me it would be kind of not a bad idea to identify critical projects that are out there throughout, that needs to be there from some points of view in order to for Cardano to flourish, and that are candidates to be critical in the future. And in that case, you should try to interest already maintainers to carry on, right? So do we have a plan to approach this problem from this angle? Because
Yes.
applying is one thing, right? These are candidates, people that think their work is worth investing, is going to be a good addition to the ecosystem. But we already know what are the critical parts. Some are not so, I would say, properly invested, are lagging behind a little bit, and maybe it should be also your move to engage those people rather than wait for them to apply for this project. So maybe.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So I said right now we are taking applications. The stage we are in developing this program, we just got the funding last year. We are building out the policies, the procedures. We're building out the programs right now so that we have something that works. And right now we have not heavily invested in actually going out and sourcing yet, because we needed to have the procedures first. And so we said, hey, anyone who has a need, come to us, be a first adopter, let's build this out. If you're looking at what we are putting in the budget for next year, this bottom item, development metrics and reporting, that is something we've already started doing with building out a baseline of metrics on how the different projects in the Cardano space are doing, so we can see where development activity is happening or spiking or dropping. And the idea is, once we have these programs up and running and working, and we know that what works, what doesn't work, then we can use these insights that we've started to collect to analyzing that, and then strategically going out.
I would like also to mention that we've got these surveys, right, every year.
Right.
Where people, of course, not all the people respond, but still it's kind of representative. And there is also in what categories, what tools, what things are used. So maybe it's also a good starting point, with this critical infrastructure identification. So just thinking cloud.
I would love to recruit you to join the open source committee. The elections are coming up for the intersect committees. So put in your pitch. I would love to have your insights on how we can actually do this and work this out so we can start doing this. Yes. Thank you.